All right. Well, good afternoon. Have you ever been a part of a team where disagreements led to better solutions and outcomes? Or maybe on the flip side, have you ever experienced conflicts that were really detrimental to team dynamics? Well, good afternoon. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. I know your time is valuable. I appreciate you being here today. We are going to discuss a crucial aspect of team dynamics: healthy conflict. Most people, when they hear that, they go, healthy conflict? Conflict is bad. But today we're going to talk about how it is actually good. It's based on the teachings of Patrick Lencioni. He's one of my favorite go-to guys. Conflict is essential for creating functional, high-performing teams. We're going to explore how healthy conflict can lead to better solutions, increased adaptability, and actually greater productivity. And additionally, we're going to touch on how diversity can sometimes be a source of conflict and how to manage it effectively through development of cultural competencies. So first of all, what is healthy conflict? Well, healthy conflict, it involves constructive disagreements that leads to positive outcomes and actual innovation. Unlike destructive conflict, which can harm relationships and productivity, healthy conflict, it encourages open communication. It encourages people to use their critical thinking skills and problem solving. It's essential to foster an environment where fear and distrust of people different from us does not rule in the workplace. Here's what I'm going to say about healthy conflict. If there's the pendulum of here's healthy conflict, here's unhealthy conflict. If you think that there is no conflict, which is like the ultimate extreme on the healthy conflict side, if you're like, oh, we have no conflict happening in our company, you still have as serious of a problem as if you have unhealthy conflict. And let me tell you why. Unhealthy conflict, there's destructive behavior. It's where people start engaging in personal attacks. People start keeping a record of wrong. And it's all about just making things really bad. And I'm going to win. I'm going to win this war. I'm going to win this battle. I don't care. I'm going to do it at all costs. I'm going to take out whoever I have to. On the other side, what is just as damaging, if you don't have any conflict happening in your company, you are working with false harmony. I can promise you, I have seen it in companies. I can promise you that there are people that are thinking things, but they're just not saying them. Now, it might be that their personality is very conflict adverse. We've talked about that in some of our other workshops and some of our other discussions about personality. So maybe that's it. Maybe they're just like, oh, I don't want to rock the boat at all. But that creates this sense of false harmony that, oh, we're really getting along. And yet what could be bubbling up underneath, what is not happening is good, solid discussion. What is not happening is questions. What is happening is that people are stuffing their feelings. And we all know that if you stuff stuff too much, and then all of a sudden there's going to come a day where it's just going to absolutely explode. Patrick Lencioni, in his book, he wrote a book called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It is one of my favorites, and he differentiates between healthy and unhealthy conflict. He says this: healthy conflict is the type of conflict that is productive, and it revolves around ideas and strategies and problem solving. It's characterized by open, honest, and respectful communication. Team members feel safe to express their opinions because there's been trust already built. They feel safe to challenge each other's ideas and engage in vigorous debate. It's healthy to say, oh, that's an interesting point of view. I've not thought of that before. What do you think about this aspect of what you're saying, though? And again, healthy conflict typically means that that conversation is not going to include a bunch of tone, a bunch of sass, and a bunch of, well, I'm asking because I really want to make you look stupid and make myself look better. The goal of healthy conflict is this. It is to find the best possible solution through collective input and collaboration. Not what I think is the right solution, not what you think is the right solution, but what is going to be best for us as a team, what is going to be best for us as an organization, what is going to be the best and provide the best results for the people that we serve. Now, unhealthy conflict is destructive, and it often becomes very personal. It involves gossip, backstabbing, and negative competition. Unhealthy conflict arises when team members don't feel safe to express their opinions openly, and it leads to passive-aggressive behavior. It leads to resentment and breakdowns in communication. This type of conflict undermines team cohesion and productivity. If you have a team that is not working in tandem, somebody once said, it's the healthy conflict is when everybody on the boat is rowing in the same direction. Unhealthy conflict is when you have people going, oh, I'm going to row just this way, and everybody else, you just do whatever you want, but my way is the best. I'm doing it right. Unhealthy conflict is when people aren't going in the same direction, and when they're not considering other people. They're only looking out for themselves, and they're looking out for what's going to make them look the best. And the destruction that creates within an organization, the lack of trust, remember the show Survivor? Oh, let's form an alliance. We're going to form an alliance. You see that happening in companies where there's unhealthy conflict. Hey, dude, you and I, we think a lot alike. You should come and join my team, and we're going to take our stand on this, and we're going to fight to the death on it. We're going to just keep beating a horse on this until we get our point across and until everybody gets on board. And if they don't get on board, then they're stupid. That's unhealthy conflict. And we don't want to see that happening in a company. Now, sometimes diversity in the workplace, sometimes that can create conflict just because you have people from different backgrounds, different experiences, different cultural mindsets, and that can contribute to unhealthy conflict. But let's talk about how that diversity can play a role in healthy conflict. Diversity in the workplace, it brings about different viewpoints and ideas. Now, look, anybody who hangs out with me knows that I am always full of ideas. I'm always full of thoughts. You want to talk about something, just name a topic and I'll just spout off about it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I have all of the answers. And what I love to do is be engaged in a conversation and then hear somebody say, wow, that's an interesting perspective. What about this? And bring different viewpoints and different ideas. It's how I stay sharp. It's how I keep learning. It's how I keep discovering, like, ooh, there's a new way of doing something. It's my justification for sitting on TikTok probably far too long, because I'm like, oh, I'm just trying to find out better ways of how to make bread with almond flour. I'm just trying to find better ways to do things. So the diversity in a workplace, it can lead to innovative solutions and better problem solving. And on the other hand, though, like we said, it can be a source of conflict due to varying perspectives, those cultural differences. But if it's managed well, these conflicts can become opportunities for growth and improvement. So let's talk about some of the benefits of healthy conflict. For one, mixed viewpoints. We don't always all have to think the same thing. It's actually kind of refreshing when you're sitting in a conversation and you're like, well, what do you think? And to hear all the different points of view from people, it's like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. I would have never thought of that. Wow, I learned to respect. I grew in my respect for you based on the things that you talked about. you get to have this creation of different possibilities for solving problems. When team members feel safe to express their opinions and challenge each other, they bring diverse perspectives to the table. And this leads to more innovative solutions and actually deeper understanding of issues. For example, in a team working on a project, having members from different departments can provide really unique insights that a single department might overlook. Another thing is that teams that engage in healthy conflict are actually more adaptable. And one of the things that we have learned, especially with that pandemic, is we have to be adaptable. Things change so quickly. If we're super rooted in like, oh, this is the way it has to be, and we can't adapt, we're going to get stuck. Our companies are going to get stuck. Our teams are going to become stagnant, and it's going to impact the ability for us to provide stellar service for our clients. Teams that engage in healthy conflict, they're better equipped to handle changes and unexpected challenges because they have practiced open communication and they've practiced problem solving. And they've got this level of trust and created this environment where it's safe to come together and say, oh my gosh, you guys, we've got this problem. We've got to figure out what we're going to do. For instance, think about this, think about a market shift. Teams that regularly engage in healthy conflict, they can quickly brainstorm and implement new strategies in order to stay competitive. I think about Irene, who's here on the meeting with us, and I think about how you were adaptable and how you have pivoted from your one role and taking your expertise and taking your knowledge, and now you've adapted that and you're using that in a totally different way, but able to provide this service that there was a gap for. I'm sure that there's some conflict in that. Doctors might be saying, well, why would we need to be working with you? We're doctors. We know what we're talking about. Well, you work with me because I can be places that you can't necessarily be. Teaching doctors how to be adaptable through the conflict of a conversation of how they work with you and how your services benefit their patients. Another benefit of healthy conflict is greater productivity. When team members leverage their individual strengths and work through disagreements constructively, they achieve higher levels of efficiency and effectiveness. Now, where I tend to see problems in this is where you have somebody who maybe has too much of their ego, too much of their self built into what's happening, and they feel like if things change, that maybe they're going to become irrelevant. Maybe they're not going to matter anymore, or that somebody's saying, oh, they might take it personally, like, oh, they think my idea was dumb. They think that I don't know how to do this right. And that's actually not the case. Healthy conflict, and with a team that is engaged in trusting each other, it says, dude, you've laid this amazing foundation of contributing to the things that we've done. And we need to keep working at making it better. We need to think about delegating tasks based on individual strengths. We need to be more efficient. We need to look around at what all of our skills are, because we all can contribute to the success of this. Now, while diversity can enhance team performance, it can also present challenges like miscommunication and conflicts arising from different values or styles. So to overcome these, it's important to promote, and you hear this from me all the time, open communication, and also have some cultural competency training. Encourage team building activities that fosters mutual respect. So if you're looking at your company and you're looking at there's a conflict happening and you think that it's because there's some differences in the diversity within your team, developing cultural competencies really can be an effective solution. And here's 3 ways to develop those competencies. Did you see that? I was like, 3 ways. I'm holding up 3 fingers, right? Oh, my allergies. All right. So here's 3 ways to develop competencies for just cultural competencies so that you can understand people better and so that you can create understanding within the work environment that you're in. First of all, research. Understanding different cultures and their communication styles, their values, their practices. Learn about cultural norms and how they influence behavior and expectations in workplaces. I remember, gosh, it's been 20 years now, but our oldest daughter, she went on a missions trip to Fiji. And one of the things that the director was telling them was, hey, when you guys are out and you're amongst the people there, do not make this sign. Don't make the sign for okay. Because in Fiji, that actually is a sign for a bad word. Who would have known that? Right? Who would have known that except for people who understood and had done some research? There's different cultures that talking loud or talking fast, it's overwhelming for them. How can you best engage in their communication? Just because they talk slower or they talk differently, it doesn't mean that they're dumb or that they're not competent. And so do some research to really understand what it is about the culture that is different from you. And then reflect, do a self-assessment and reflect on your own cultural biases and assumptions. Identifying areas where you may need to improve your understanding and approach to cultural differences. We all tend to have biases in things. And so when we can go, oh, do I have a bias towards that particular people group? Do I have a bias towards people who look like that? Does it make me think something about them? So doing that self-reflection, like what am I bringing that's contributing to this conflict? What am I bringing that's contributing to this situation? And then the next thing is empathy. Practice empathy by putting yourself in others' shoes and understanding their perspectives. We've all been that new person. We've all been that outsider. And so when we can practice empathy for somebody who is culturally different than we are, or for whatever the diversity is, we get to encourage open dialogue. We get to actively listen. And we want to do this with the expectation that we're going to hear their viewpoint. And then we're going to just stop for a minute. And after we've heard what they've said, put ourselves in their shoes. How would we feel if the role was reversed? How would we feel if we were encountering what they're encountering? And so those are 3 tips that you can use to improve your cultural competency so that it can help keep healthy conflict, as opposed to, sometimes some of the conflict happens because there's not that cultural competency. There was a misunderstanding. But if you've done these 3 things, then it will help you go, oh, I know what this is. Oh, I know why you do that. Not to assume things. Again, we want to make sure to not bring in too many assumptions and biases, but to have a better understanding that the world is more than just what it comes from our point of view. Also, in managing healthy conflict, it is essential to recognize and address different communication styles. Here's a few things. Passive people. Passive people seem to lack confidence, and it gets misconstrued that they seem ineffective. So how can you encourage a passive person to express their thoughts because they have valuable insights? They have some things inside that they really can contribute that are going to be amazing to the success of a company. Help them build their confidence in making those contributions. Now, on the other side, you have aggressive people. Aggressive people can seem to be offensive, and it seems like they have a strong need to dominate. Well, it's crucial to ensure that their input is balanced with others' contributions. Don't let aggressive people take over the entire conversation simply because they're going to bully their way in. It's important to hear their thoughts, and it's important to hear the thoughts of passive people, both and equally. And then sometimes you have assertive people. Assertive people, now they seem positive and confident, and they seem fair when dealing with people. Encouraging assertiveness, again, in a passive person, you want to encourage them to be more assertive. In an aggressive person, you want to encourage them to be a little less assertive, because encouraging assertiveness, it helps foster this respectful and collaborative environment. Being assertive is not a bad thing. It's just, what do you do with that assertiveness? So, how to facilitate healthy conflict? Creating a safe environment for conflict is crucial. Encourage open dialogue and respect for differing opinions. I remember hearing somebody talk about step families and blended families. And they said, we told our kids, you do not have to like each other, but you have to respect each other and be nice to each other. You don't have to be best friends, you might never be, but in order to have healthy conflict, you're going to have to encourage dialogue, which is based on respect and being kind to others. So some effective conflict resolution techniques include active listening, empathy, and problem solving. And here's one practical tool, and it's called using the I statements. Now, an I statement encourages discussion, and it helps reduce friction because it helps people by focusing on feelings and personal impact rather than assigning blame. Rather than, you are just so rude. You do this all the time and you make me lose my mind. Well, an I statement works like this. First of all, it begins with a statement of feelings. And then you want to follow the statement by talking about what the actual problem is. And then you end with your reasons for feeling the way you do. So here's an example. I feel frustrated when you don't work on a task I gave you because I feel like you don't respect me. I feel frustrated when you don't work on a task I gave you because I feel like you don't respect me. In that sentence, you're giving responsibility for yourself. You're acknowledging, this is how I feel. I'm not telling you that you've made me be someone or be a certain way. This is how I feel because of your action, and this is why. And so when you can do those I statements, it helps to communicate concerns without actually causing defensiveness, because it makes it easier to resolve conflicts constructively. So healthy conflict is essential for creating functional, high-performing teams. And by embracing diversity, encouraging open communication, and utilizing tools like I statements, we can turn potential conflicts into opportunities for growth and improvement. Remember, the goal is not to avoid conflict, but to engage in it constructively. So developing cultural competencies through research, self-assessment, empathy, this can also help manage conflicts arising from diversity effectively. Thank you so much for being a part. I love that people come out and actually engage here in our workshop or in our weekly gathering, the Lunch and Learn for Leaders and those who want to be. For those of you who aren't able to make it, I do record this and I put it up on YouTube, and that gets posted every week. You can always watch a replay of that. I'm Jill Valdez, the COO and founder of Link Consulting, where I work with leaders to become confident leaders and have their dream team without starting from scratch. You can find me at linkconsulting.info. When you go to the website, you actually have the opportunity to get my free ebook, Confident Leadership, How to Be a Confident Leader of a Committed Team Providing Stellar Service. And again, it's so great to have you. I hope that you'll join us next week. And in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care. Bye-bye.